Today on the guest list, we're talking to the legendary Sylvester Stallone.
Mr. Stallone, it's a pleasure to see you. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Feeling great.
So I want to know what separates the Taylor Sheridan screenplay from others that you've been lucky enough to read over your career.
Well, usually it's a different spin, different interpretation of a subject we've seen before, but like boxing films, or Rocky, you've seen 1,000 boxing films, but what separates that one? Well, his interpretation of a mafioso basically being banned out to the West, where he's completely a fish out of water. He has to rebuild a family. And after, keeping his mouth shut for 25 years, you sort of feel a little sympathy for a character you normally are not sympathetic towards. And then you see him rebuild his life with the oddest bunch of characters you've ever seen. So it's a journey that the audience goes on with me at the same time.
What parts of this character do you see in yourself?
Well, I said it before, but I decided, like Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, you wake up one morning, you're a cockroach, but you still have the same brain that you had before. I thought, let's say I'm Sylvester Stallone, but I woke up and guess what? You've been now deemed a gangster for real, like you're in the Genovese mob. But you still have the same personality that you have. So this is probably the closest thing that I've ever played to me, which, odd as it may seem to you all, playing yourself is the hardest thing ever. That's why when you see some actors on interviews, they're like really boring. Then you see them on camera, they're incredibly active. You go, wow, how's that possible? Well, this time I'm trying to actually bring this character as close as I can to my sense of humor in the way I interpret things, where I can really get dark if I have to get dark, as you'll see in later episodes. But also, he's kind of like off kilter. He's like your weird uncle.
This is your first time doing kind of a long run series. As a writer yourself, how different is it getting 10 hours to tell a story as opposed to 2 hours? I feel like it would be a huge transition, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, because I had to learn about 410 pages of dialogue, but a lot, because I'm almost at every scene. But hopefully, eventually, it'll start to have all these little tributaries where it'll lead to other characters, and you start to get into their lives. But what I found working with these fellas is that they understand that I'm also a writer. So when certain scenes just didn't fit what I was explaining, just to the previous reporter, that I have to use my sense of humor. So it's almost a Rocky-esque kind of thing where he's ad-libbing and throwing things in there. And they finally said, oh, he's not going to do it our way, so let him do it his way. So it all decided, I convey what they're trying to say, but I try to put it in my words.
After being exiled from what you thought was originally your family, how do you redefine what family is after the events of what happens in this series?
Well, the thing is, you realize you're talking about the character, right? Okay, good. Well, the deal is this. You've grown up in this Italian, this super macho kind of gangster aura around you, and you're very happy with the streets of New York. So to be ripped off and sent out to a place where you're completely alien, you might be going to the moon. Everyone could identify with, like, all of a sudden you're taken from your comfort zone and you're stuck almost in a witness protection program, and you have to start from scratch without any of the luxuries, without any of the connections. You don't know one person in town. So it's really kind of a genesis that is highly unique, because the audience gets to see his trials and tribulations and has to go with him as he begins to pick out new members of his family. And one will be an Indian, one's a cowboy, one's like a nerd, one's this guy, one's the people that are completely alien to anyone he's ever been around in his entire life. So that, to me, provides a portal to comedy, no question.
Taylor Sheridan is known to reach out to actors directly. Is that how Tulsa King was presented to you, or originally Kansas City?
Yes and no. I met him at a barn, actually, riding horses at the LA Equestrian Center. And he hadn't quite made it yet. I think he was still working on Sicario. That hadn't even come out yet. And he was just a guy who was just, actually, I identified with him because I had a hard time making it as an actor. And that's why I decided to, diverge into writing. And it seemed to be, obviously, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't become a writer. And Taylor, I guess because he wasn't satisfied with his acting career, actually opened up the door to a whole new world that probably never would have been presented to him. So we had a lot in common. We also rode Western horses together, and we kind of competed in these arenas. Nothing high level, just try to hang on for dear life. And little did I know that 4 years later, I get a phone call like, "Hey, remember me?" Slightly, yeah. How you doing? You want to play a gangster? I said, "Go no further." Well, you want to hear the rest of the story? I don't even care. You say gangster. I've been wanting to do this my whole life. Wake me up later on tonight. Bang, seriously. And that's how it started.
So
Sure.
You've been acting for so long, but is there still things that you learn about acting just from being on the set or from the other actors that you're around?
You do. Actually, acting is real delicate balance. There's almost, again, I'll use the kind of like comparison between, there's an analogy between a boxer and an actor. So if you're in there with a good actor, like with a good boxer, you're going to show a lot more of your moves and skill. When you're in there with a bad actor, it's not a very interesting fight. So you find yourself trying to bring out the best of an actor. You try to write dialogue for him that brings out his best side. The main thing, I think actors get actually better because they learn how to relax. They know their strong suits. Like, there's no such a thing as the best actor. People have always said, "Oh, Brando's the best actor, De Niro's the best actor." No one's the best actor. You're the best at a certain part, or you're playing a great character. You're really good at that. Some guys are incredible Shakespearean actors, but they won't be very good in a Western. You know what I mean? But they're great actors in their genre. So you try to bring out, like, I realize my lane. So this is my lane, and I'm very comfortable in it. And it's taken a long time, believe it or not, because you try to overcompensate in some things. I look, oh my God, what was I thinking? And as you get older, you start to settle down, and you can see, like a quarterback, you start to see the whole field. And you learn the most important thing, which is breathing. In the middle of a tense scene, you're just calm. Whereas when you're young, as the phrase goes, when in doubt, shout. So that's why young actors are so loud, because they think that's acting. And as you get older, you realize you can shout very quietly, just for your eyes. Matter of fact, the silence is even louder than the shouting.
Mr. Stallone, one of the cities our show airs on is Tulsa, Oklahoma. So what did you love about Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Well, I love the people. Thought the weather could use a slight adjustment. It's tough weather, boy. I'll tell you, these guys out there, wow. I have such respect. I used to think that everyone from New York are the toughest guys in the world. Forget it. These people that really went out west and settled that and been there for generations, I have tremendous respect for their resiliency and their actual camaraderie. They're very, very friendly. But when we were there, we went through hailstorms, tornadoes, freezing weather, boiling weather up to 114 degrees. It got so hot once that outside the motorhome was 136 degrees on the asphalt, literally fried an egg.
I have to ask, you mentioned younger actors, and you kind of hinted about the sort of gathering the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
Right,
so what's it like for them? I mean, I have to believe, obviously these younger actors have all grown up seeing you. So what's the factor of kind of calming them down and getting to work?
Actually, I joke around with them a lot between. I don't go off and mood up. Some, tend to be a little distance from them. If anything, I'm constantly joking with them. And then sometimes you see characters and you go, who is this guy? What is the local guy? I said, he's got it. I want to make him part of the gang. For example, the heavyset guy that I hit with the thermos, that was his only scene. That was it, done. I said, no. He's going to be around. He's going to be my sidekick. And as the series goes on, Fred becomes my consigliere, if you know what I mean. Because you could just tell this guy has the it factor. It's just a certain way he moves. Next time you see it, it's so detectable. So I talk to everybody. I'm not standoffish at all. And right away, they start joking with me and I go, okay, we're ready to move.
I wanted to ask you, working so closely with Taylor Sheridan now, do you see a Yellowstone crossover happening for this universe? I feel like the two shows would blend really well together.
I mean, I go over and I kill John Dutton. No problem. Got it. Take over the ranch. Yeah. No, I think we're getting kind of close to it. You'll see later on the episodes, I do get into the cowboy aspect of it and some of these real tough guys. And it's going to continue that way. When I start to get involved with the oil baron types and the real tough guys, they don't mess around. So we're kind of blending the two together, but will I actually be staying in John Dutton's guest house? I doubt it.
Thank you.
We're used to seeing you in gritty roles. As a Philadelphia native, obviously we loved you in Rocky, and you spoke a little bit about this with Perry, that playing a gangster is something that you've always wanted to do. Right. Can you expand upon your dream of obviously this role, and what about a Mafia-centered story made you really want to dig your teeth into this?
well, the idea of it's like some guys want to play cowboy and Indian, whatever. For an actor to get to play that kind of mysterious mystique that surrounds the gangster for some odd reason, but we're just addicted to it. And I was absolutely shunned. I was left out of it. I couldn't even get a job as an extra. And finally, about 45 years later, opportunity comes knocking on my door from the guy that I was riding horses with. So you never know where it's going to come from. And actually, the whole idea started probably about 5 years earlier when David Glasser, the producer, wanted me to do, I guess it was the equivalent to Godfather 3. It was a book called Omerta, written by Mario Puzo. And I wanted to do it. It was great. It was actually with the Weinstein Company at that time. And it just didn't happen. But David thought, wow, there's still something to this. I met with Sly. So he calls Taylor Sheridan at about midnight and says, you know what? Start thinking about something, a cowboy going west. A Mafia guy going west, becoming a cowboy, so on and so forth. Taylor put it into his brain, and about 48 hours later, we had a treatment.